Today we close the season of Christmas, and we start the new year with Epiphany. Now, Epiphany outside the church doesn't really mean much, but the word Epiphany does mean revelation. And for us, that revelation means that God came to us in Christ. That Jesus came. He came to save, He came to serve, and He came to show us the way of love. And so we celebrate this good news. It's not a party kind of celebrating good news, but I'm hopeful that if we examine the reading of today's lessons, we might get a sense of a deeper meaning and a deeper revelation for how we might live our lives and be the church today. I was struck at how poetic Isaiah is. He tells of a light shining to those whose world was dark, a people who were far from home, who had no evident hope of returning, and when they did return, they found things weren't the country and the homeland they remembered. But Isaiah speaks of a light, and it's more than light. It's a promise of return. It's a promise that theirs would be a nation of people turned into a beacon of welcome and hope for others. And Matthew, as Mavi said, is the only gospel that talks about the Magi, the wise men, who followed a star to find a new king. Now, these were foreigners, they were outsiders, and yet they were the ones who came to the town finding something new, telling of something new, happening right under the current king's nose. And when King Herod heard the news, he feared that his seat would be deposed. He sent his aides on a fact-finding mission, and to cover all his bases, though we didn't read that far into the text today, he covered his bases by setting on a mass extermination program. Now, with this in our minds, it may cause us to think of history and see the patterns of paranoid leaders and subsequent oppressions down the centuries. And we may be tempted to say that history always repeats itself. And we would be right. Those negative things are true. As often as horrible things have played out, things have been done and said, there are equally as powerful, hopeful things that have happened as well. History repeatedly shows us that there are people who stand up against injustice. I'm sure some names come to mind. There are people who speak out against abuse and intolerance. There are people like us who every day do something, say something, to counteract someone's despair or allay someone's fear and dispel hatred. The good news of Christmas is everyday good news that Jesus came and continues to come to us, especially in our moments of need. The good news is that God is fashioning us to be the light that shines in the darkness. That the Spirit empowers us to be a force for change in a world where people still fear for their lives, flee their homes, or feel their own country isn't what it used to be. It's a good time to think of some things or wonder that where is God's presence being felt in this world that has become so difficult? Or where is Jesus' love being made known in the challenges in your own life? How is Jesus' saving power at work in our own church and in our community? The good news tells us that we are being fashioned to be a light. But we can't be the light on our own. And we can't always know where these things are happening. We need each other, and we need this church to support our faith and our actions in our everyday. And over the last few months, there's been a group from Church Council and a few others who have spent some time examining how we are church, how we do church. And as our annual meeting approaches, we thought it would be helpful to share some of what we have been doing. And as we did this work, we realized that this congregation, we've got what we're calling areas of ministry. And they are, we have a building that is a ministry where we host things. We have financial ministries that, not only do they support the work of the church, but they help the community. And one of those areas, another area, is a mission and outreach area of ministry. The mission part is how we've been donating our dollars for good, and also it goes locally and it goes far beyond our community. We can think of a few things. We support World Vision and their work with children. We support Habitat and they're building a safe, affordable homes. We supply the Pocket Park Neighborhood Center with food and goods and support year-round. I think you get the picture of what it means when we say we do mission. But we talk about mission and outreach, and I don't know if we're as good at outreach as we might think. And I think that may be because we all may have a different idea of what outreach means. So whatever it may mean is something we need to work with each other to figure out. And so over these next few months, we'll explore and discover together how we may reach out, whether it be to our church members or church community, or even further beyond our doors. And that's just in a nutshell a little of what we've been doing. But it is all a part of remembering the words of Isaiah, that in the midst of our lives, in our church, in the world, the poetic words of the prophet invite anyone who is discouraged to look up, to have hope, for things are about to change. Isaiah says, "Rise and shine, for your light has come." The poet anticipates that Jerusalem, or our country, or our church, will become a beehive of productivity and prosperity. He says, "Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn." It's cause for celebration that God has promised to make all of us be able to work effectively in peace. And that promise from God is very sure. I think if we can remember these words of hope, we can be a beacon of light that is a hope and a welcome for one another and for the world.